All right, well, good morning, everybody. At this time, I'd like to welcome all of you to the SLC3's program on the future of collaborative design, innovation, and immersive VR/AR technologies. My name is Brandon Meinert, and on behalf of the Training and Education Committee and the SLC3 leadership, we are pleased you all could join us this morning for this exciting program. Before I make an introduction to our guest speaker today, I do have a few housekeeping items. As this is a virtual program, I do want to touch on some program etiquette. First, I hope you all have found a quiet place to participate in this program away from any distractions. We want to make sure everyone has a great experience this morning, so please keep on mute. We will have a Q&A session beginning at 9:15. We ask that you put your questions and comments in the chat, and during the open session, we'll address as many questions as we can. Kelly and I will monitor the chat for the Q&A portion of the program. If your question is being discussed, feel free to unmute if you would like to follow up with an answer to your question. This process will help keep us orderly for this portion. Please note our virtual programs are being recorded. A copy of this program is available after the program for all attendees. I wanted to quickly review our agenda today. Ernesto Pacheco is our guest speaker and will begin his presentation at 8:10 and finish about 9:15 with Q&A. Kelly Jackson, our Executive Director, will follow up and close out our meeting. For those of you who don't know us, the SLC3 is a community of design and construction industry professionals with a common interest in betterment of our region. Our planning committee has identified 4 key pillars of organization: innovation, continuing education, equity empowerment, and all-inclusive workforce collaboration. Speaking of continuing education, I would like to acknowledge our hardworking Training and Education Committee. This program and all training and education programs are planned by these subcommittees. I did chair this subcommittee for this program, and I would like to thank all the subcommittee members who participate on this. Bob Johnson, Tom Sissel, Monica Connors, and of course, Kelly for all the efforts planning our topic and speaker. As a reminder, if you are interested in helping with future events with our Training and Education Committee, please reach out to me or SL3C staff. Kelly is always available to share information on our committees, and you can find more information on the SLC3 website. As an additional benefit of your participation today, this program has been developed to permit you to qualify for 1 professional development hour for professional engineering and 1 learning unit with the American Institute of Architects. Documentation has been sent to all of you and is on the SLC3 website on the resources page. We always seek your evaluations, and at the conclusion of each program, please take a couple of minutes to answer a few quick questions sent to your inbox about the program. The program evaluations and comments are used to prepare for future programming, as well as determine the overall value of your education and networking programs for the year. We do take all evaluations seriously and always hope to improve our programs. We are proud to say that we've been appreciative of the high remarks we've received throughout the pandemic and moving programs to online. The SLC3 celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. We have a packed calendar, and hopefully you all are making our events in your calendar, or marking your events in our calendar. Our next event is our Best Practices and Diversity Awards Gala at the Hilton Frontenac, which is on the 18th of August. Registration is available, but seating is limited. There is also a hybrid option for those of you who cannot make this event in person. On September 9th, our safety forum on workforce violence prevention, and on September 30th, our popular owners roundtable and top concerns will be in place. Both events will happen in person. This SLC3 calendar of events is available on the website, so please make note that all future programs and events. Note that the SLC3 has a new headquarters, so be sure to note the new address for payments or anything else related. We also ask you to please follow our SLC3 page to keep updated on what's going on with the SLC3 and other information shared by the owners and membership. Also, don't forget to go to the website for the blogs and news, as well as other resources. Last but not least, before our program begins, we do want to take the time to give a special recognition to our annual training and education sponsors. Cosney Wagner is again our annual platinum sponsor. We appreciate their top tier support each year. Our gold sponsors are McGrath and Associates, Ross and Barazzini, Kwame Building Group, and L. Keeley. And our silver sponsors are Farnsworth Group, Kaiser Electric, JF Electric, Hankins Construction, Abna Engineering, OWH Architects, Custom Engineering, and Hush Blackwell. Our annual sponsorships are truly the best way to support SLC3's mission of providing excellent continuing education. We are ready to begin the program. Ernesto Pacheco is a visualization specialist with over 20 years of experience. He leverages expert knowledge of design visualization applications and supporting project teams in project pursuits. As the director of visualization at Canon Design, he is a go-to person for all project-related aspects of visual communication. He is primarily responsible for research and development of new technologies and into the design process. And he is very well versed in immersive technology development and integral to exciting and forward-thinking partnerships between technology companies and the AEC industry. We promise this program will teach you how you can leverage immersive technologies to enhance the design process and break geographical boundaries through the true multi-user interactive VR/AR sessions. Ernesto, the screen is yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the introduction and the invitation. Good morning to everyone. Let me know if you can see my screen. All right, I think I got it now.
Yeah, we'll share now.
All right. You probably see a logo. Let me just start the presentation. Okay, can you see it?
You do.
All right, thank you. Yes, so just a little bit more about what I do at Canon Design. Thank you again for joining the session. We do a lot of training, throughout the firm. We have around 20 offices plus minus 1,000 employees, and one of my responsibilities is to democratize visualization for the company. We do a lot of research and development for immersive technologies, anything from VR, AR, and MR. We also do a lot of support. So if anybody having any issues with software or if they have any questions regarding workflow, we support that as well. We tend to, have calls every month just to discuss, the latest and greatest on visualization and, any type of technology that, we can implement into our design practice. A little bit more about myself. I love photography and sketching. I also cycle. St. Louis is perfect for this. So I have been lucky, honestly, to call St. Louis my home. I have been living in St. Louis for almost 15 years now, a little bit more than that probably. So yeah, this is some of the things that I do outside architecture and technology. So we're going to start before talking about pre-pandemic design, which was primarily physical. In the past, we used to come together for day-long meetings. We used to fly contractors and other designers and come together into these spaces with physical objects, obviously, and 3D printing, design options, as well as renderings, bringing animations, whatever help communicate the design intent and the ideas that we wanted to put forward towards the client. In 2019, we saw this trend of VR and AR taking off, 66% according to this graph. We were very excited. We had been implementing real-time rendering and VR for almost 4 years now, since 2019. So we were really versed with the technology by then. We knew exactly what was required from our end when it comes to investment, not only when it comes to hardware and software, but also skill set, and just trying to, I guess, educate the client on, how this can enhance our communication with them. So then the pandemic happened 2020. We all move quickly to the new normal of design, which is primarily digital. I'm pretty sure that you all have experienced this when it comes to collaborative space like Miro or Mural, where you can have these ideation sessions. But we took it to the next level. Starting in March to 2020, we had one of the first interviews that was primarily digital. And we wanted to make sure that we had a virtual venue that we can communicate this design intent just like we will do physically in one space with maybe a physical model. But instead, we went with a virtual permanent space, in this case, the city of Philadelphia. And it was an exciting time to actually test some of the ideas that we had been kind of like, trying to promote throughout the firm. So the pandemic, one of the things, well, if we can say that it is one thing that the pandemic enabled us to do is to actually push forward all of these technologies and actually try them for, production work. Sorry about that, I skipped one. We also looked into interactive presentations. One of the problems that we run into is hardware, right? Like if you are trying to push forward and allow the client to experience these spaces, you have to think about how they will consume that on the other end. So we have been trying to find ways to use the cloud to deploy these experiences. We have learned a lot throughout the years in terms of what it means to deploy to a mobile device, what it means to deploy to a cloud. Obviously, there is more work to be done on the visualization end of things. We all know how to use Revit and Rhino and even SketchUp for this type of presentations, but there is a lot of decimation of geometry and optimization that has to happen to make these type of deployments work. And this has allowed our clients to, take all this information without having to worry about, getting IT involved even. They don't have to, buy anything expensive when it comes to hardware to take advantage of these type of presentations. With that, we started looking at 3D scanning, which is something that has helped Canon design for the last year, especially with the pandemic and all the restrictions that came with it. How do you survey a space, existing conditions? That was the question, without having to go back several times, and also just rely on 2D photographs. So we have been using 3D scanning for these type of situations. And it has been really well received by all our teams. They actually now only use 3D scanning for existing conditions. And what it means is, you take this hardware on site and spend maybe 2 hours to just take a couple of 360 3D scans of the space and then process this information. Once the information is processed, the output is basically a 3D mesh and a point cloud that then you can use in Revit or Rhino to use as a reference for 3D modeling the space. You also get free floor plans, so to speak. These are not AutoCAD ready, but it gets you to a point pretty quickly. But the most important part of this is that all of this lives in the cloud, so you can send links to the client. You can also have a second visit of the site if you want to, virtually. And you can take measurements, you can take more pictures if you want to. Again, avoiding having to go back on site to do this, you can do it now on the cloud pretty quickly. You can have conversations, over a Zoom meeting with a client and, move the design forward without having to spend more time and money surveying the space. And when we're talking about technology and VR and AR, we have to think about how this is being implemented. Obviously, real-time rendering is driving all of these technologies, VR and AR. So most of us use game engines to deploy the experiences. So the question is, how do we bring game design into the architectural field, right? Like the gamification of design. It has to be interactive. And just like with video games, it has to have this story component, storytelling component. So we're lucky that by now, pretty much everyone has a smartphone, and I'm sure that you all have play a game, a mobile game, so you have a little bit of experience with that. So we're trying to take advantage of that memory, that muscle memory that we all have interacting with these devices, and trying to find a way to convey story and design intent to our clients via these new devices and technologies. So at Count Design, we have been doing a lot of R&D, always trying to find the best way to utilize these technologies, exploring, trying to think forward what's coming down the pike. And we had an opportunity with Modular Design Plus, which is a sister company that we have, to test some of these ideas. How do you create a mini game in a virtual space, kind of like a Lego game, where you bring all these pre-built modules in virtual reality and have conversations one-to-one, or you can always, go back to this godlike, view. But the most important part of this, again, is deployment. So you have to make sure that anyone can access these experiences. You don't have to, you have to avoid to try to limit the access to this with hardware specifically. So we have been working with an Icelandic company called Arkeo for the last 4 or 5 years, informing the development of this software, and finding ways to utilize this application in a cross-platform way. And what that means is that it doesn't matter if you have an Android phone or if you have an Apple device. You can log in, you can have the experience, you can have these conversations. It can be interactive. You can move in 3D model, you can sketch. So it has been a game changer, to be honest with you, when it comes to design visualization. And we have seen this, this type of technology being implemented, throughout the industry. But we always try to push boundaries, right? So this is the city of Philadelphia. This is one of the most, I guess, ambitious projects that we have pushed through this type of technology. And the idea here was to see if we could, have a true multi-user VR experience, as well as a cross-platform experience, with links to these permanent virtual space, and make sure that the experience was worthwhile for everybody. We wanted to make sure that this was optimized for all the devices, that anyone that was looking at this will be fine understanding the space and what we wanted to do. And with that, we have seen a lot of projects, a lot of project pursuits utilizing this technology to communicate. This is a project out of our Chicago office. So we have a designer, Troy Hogar. In this case, he's sketching using an iPad, and I am in the virtual space using goggles, kind of like directing the conversation, moving the camera around, having this interactive talk with the client, trying to express our design intent the best way possible. And you can make it, again, interactive. Just think about, having these, I guess, physical model, but in virtual space where you can quickly just move things around, sketch again, move things, have a little bit more interactivity when it comes to materials. If you want to do that, you can also play with different views. And it has been very successful. Again, this is something because we are very used to smart devices. Anyone can pick it up. So if you send this app to a client, they can only spend like an hour or less than an hour to understand how it works. So we have been looking, towards those type of applications, just making sure that we can not only spark the imagination of the client, but also, make sure that it doesn't bog down our design intent and, the conversation. We want to make sure that this is fluid and is organic. It takes a little bit of time. Obviously, there is a lot of rehearsing that happens with this type of presentations, but the results are amazing. And with that, we continue on, how real-time is democratizing, visualization. About 6 years ago, we had a project that required a real-time model for the first time. We were lucky to have an amazing designer out of the St. Louis office, John McAllister, working with us on this project. So the idea was to come up with an interactive presentation for the client. The client was going to have a fundraising event, and he wanted to, get some funding, and what the sponsors of the project, get them excited about the new basketball arena. So we took this project and started looking at, how do you approach real-time rendering? How do you make sure that this experience is optimized? So we went through a lot of stages on, exploring, trying, exporting a lot of file types to work with the game engine that we were using, in this case, Unreal Engine. And because, the project was put together in Revit, Revit tends to be very heavy when it comes to geometry. So we decided to try different things, right? In this case, we were exporting to Rhino and then using Rhino to do some cleaning, and then 3ds Max was used as well to decimate some of the geometry and data that we received from the designer. And we also use a couple of other applications that allow you to quickly transfer and translate all of these file formats quickly without really having to think about it. You create, we used to create presets that could, expedite some of these processes. And then using, in this case, Modo, which is a competitor to 3ds Max, we utilize this software to actually do UV mapping. The project was, heavy with graphics, environmental graphics. So we need to make sure that all of these graphics were, located correctly in 3D space. So this was a really fun experience. We were actually designing a game for the first time to try to, express our design intent to the client. And here is the view of the same graphic now in the game engine, Unreal Engine. We spent a lot of time understanding, lighting and, processing all of this data through a game engine. But then the fun began after this. Once you get all the data into a game engine, the next question is, so what is the part of this that is going to be interactive? How do you approach this storytelling moment with the client? So we decided to create a mini game within the experience. We decided to give the user a chance to shoot hoops in the arena, and this came as a result. The client called us one day, and they were basically asking for something that could break the ice with the sponsors, and also they mentioned that one of the athletes will be at the fundraising event. So that was the best idea that we came up with. But the point here is that because of this, having this challenge, it pushed our little team. We were like 3 people: Andrew Petty, myself, and an intern. We're working on this, and just going down, all this information on how do you approach basketball in a game engine. How do you give basketball mass, and how textures react to friction, trying to recreate a basketball within this virtual space, which was super fun. It really brought back memories of The Matrix, because that's what we were doing. We're trying to recreate reality. So yeah, we had a lot of fun just going down this storytelling path. There was a little bit of scripting, but it's all visual scripting. All of this is obviously programming language, but in a visual way. So it's not that hard to understand once you start, playing with that type of, deployment. And then here is a video of the fundraising event. We had over 30 people joining us on the night of the fundraising dinner. And then we have here the athlete picking up the ball and shooting hoops, and everybody just loved it. It honestly broke the ice right away. A lot of questions were, started coming down. We had a lot of sponsors wanting to try the VR's experience and walking around the arena, finding their seats, making sure that they felt comfortable. with the, I guess, the distances you get on those aisles. And so it was a very interactive conversation. It created this, safe space for everybody to feel comfortable. And it also sparked a lot of enthusiasm about the new project. So now it's finished, by the way. And yeah, it was one of the most rewarding projects that I have worked so far at Canon Design. It was an intense project for sure, but it helped Canon Design, push all of this technology early on. Again, this was 5 years ago, so we were ready when the new technology came to light, and we just picked it up. And just quickly, right now we're looking at real-time rendering for everything that we do when it comes to visualization. It has created this a way to expedite deliverables. We use Twinmotion for early on, I guess, concept renderings and animations, and then we push that to Unreal Engine for anything more final, or if we have a need for a very custom interactive experience like the basketball arena. And what this has done for Canon is basically cut the rendering process almost in half. In the past, we used to do a lot of iteration, which means you go from that ideation stage where you sketch or draw, and then you have to 3D model your idea, have the rendering software process a couple of images, do some post-processing in Photoshop or any type of photo editing software, have that review, and then go back and do the same. Nowadays, we tend to do the ideation alongside the 3D modeling in the rendering, just because you have quick feedback from the render engine. You don't have to wait overnight to render out these images and animations. So the review process is a little bit more interactive. We have seen that a lot lately. We also use Enscape. So you have Twinmotion and Enscape allowing teams to come together and have live conversations with the model open, and all these textures at your at the tip of your hands, that you can quickly just push and move things, have this organic conversation, and the review process becomes less hectic and less taxing, so designers can focus on their craft. They don't really have to think about the process anymore. Again, slowly moving towards something more easy in the way of processing files. And with that, we move into interoperability, which is exactly that. How do you communicate software with each other? We all know, and probably you all know, that the pain that comes with working with Autodesk products sometimes, Revit in specific, 3ds Max, they should communicate. They should have this venue of two-way communication, but they don't. And that has basically put a lot of pressure on our designers, because we, again, at Canon Design, we really don't force anybody to use a specific software. We let the designers focus on their craft and then just use the tools that they learn at school or they are comfortable using. But with that, we have to deal with file formats, and that also creates duplicates, right? So you have duplicates of FBX files, OBJs. You have to organize this. You have to manage all the files, and also you have to think about the storage, because some of these projects are huge. We're talking about 20 gigabytes of information, if not more. So if you keep adding, every time you want to export something to, Unreal Engine or 3ds Max, you will end up with this huge issue. And, IT obviously, gets involved with the storage limits that we all have at Canon. And yeah, like just again, loading, we have seen this many times, just spending sometimes overnight, to be honest. Like some of these Revit files are so big, it creates a lot of anxiety. And the idea here is, how do you come together? How do you bring all these pieces together without having to bog down the design process, and also allowing the users to just think about their own piece of information, and not worry about what is going to happen to that information after they give it to the next person. So Omniverse by NVIDIA has changed, is changing the industry. Honestly, I think that, they introduced a couple of applications that allowed, and plugins that allowed Revit, Rhino, SketchUp, 3ds Max, even Unreal Engine to communicate in real time using the USD workflow, which is a file format created by Pixar. So again, we're kind of like using, a little bit of a different industry type of workflow, similar to what we did with gaming and real-time rendering. But Pixar, back then when they created the USD file format, they were trying to solve the same problem. They were using Maya, or they were using 3ds Max and some other applications, and they have to export to different file formats and then track those files, make sure that they were located correctly, that they were scaled correctly, and that they have all the UV mapping information mapped correctly as well. So there is a lot of pieces that they solved with the USD workflow, but it wasn't really open widely throughout the industry until NVIDIA decided to pick it up. So the idea here is, again, to have all the easy design apps to communicate. In this case, we use Substance to create all the materials, all the shaders, because they are like physical based. You don't have to really think about how this material is going to react to light. And also having this live, connection with different applications. So you can see if somebody's working in Revit and is outputting this USD to Omniverse, and somebody's working in Rhino and is doing the same, the person that is doing the visualization in Omniverse can see all these changes happening in real time. It also introduced a couple of render engines, ray tracing and path tracing engines in this case. And that means that you don't have to second guess yourself. Most of these render engines are unbiased. Like they tend to be, they give you exactly what the application is seeing. You don't have to. You can cheat if you want to, but if you want to get something super for real, you can do it pretty quickly. It also has a content library and a couple of other features like having programming language, so you can create and modify some of these applications very quickly if you have that background. So yes, Omniverse has a couple of apps that you can use. You can see here, Create is basically a space where you can come together and build a nice visualization output. View will be something more like Enscape and Twinmotion. And then you have drivers and the nucleus that is basically piecing everything together in the background for you. And with this, I actually put together a couple of demos trying to figure out how we can implement this into our design practice. So I picked up the Gilardi house by architect Luis Barragán from Mexico City house. And I brought in the 3D data. I tried to be as unbiased as possible. I tried to break the software a couple of times just to make sure that it was ready for production work. But the idea was basically to have different applications talking to each other. So this is a 3ds Max model. Then I use Substance to create custom texture maps in this case. And then, having Substance communicating to the space, that means that, iteration when it comes to finishes is almost instantaneous. And you can have as many of these materials loaded into the experience. And you can, again, you are sure that these shaders are photoreal, that they are physically based. So you don't have to worry about, reflections or, how the light is reacting to these, in this case, this piece of wood. So it was very exciting just to finally, have, in this case, SketchUp communicating quickly to the same space. And then you have 3ds Max communicating to the same space. And you're like 3D modeling in real time. And you're seeing the changes on the Omniverse side of things very quickly with for a real, light solution. So it was very exciting. Iteration is a breeze. If you have access to Substance in this case, it's a matter of just downloading a couple of shaders and just applying them to different items. And you can quickly have conversations and make decisions, moving the design ahead exponentially. And again, here I'm just trying, a couple of different lighting solutions. And these are some of the renderings that came out of this experience. It was very rewarding in my case. I used this house a lot to test render engines, so I already had the 3D model. But it was very rewarding just to see it come to life at this level, at this quality. And again, it's all real time. You have this little video at the bottom showing, me moving the sun, changing exposure, moving around. It has denoising active. So all of those lines that you see is that the denoising, basically taking away all the artifacts that you will otherwise get. And yeah, again, it's very responsive, it's light. The only problem with Omniverse is basically hardware. You have to have access to an RTX GPU. So it has to be an NVIDIA GPU. I believe AMD now supports RTX, so you should be able to use an AMD graphics card. But you definitely need access to a robust hardware to actually use these for production work. And this is something that Canon Design has been exploring. We're really close to implement this to the firm as a tool that can be used again for production work. We just we're trying to be as smart as possible when it comes to the investment on hardware or services in this case, and make sure that this is something that can influence our decisions, and also help our clients make decisions quickly. So Omniverse, in this case, Substance by Adobe, has created this new environment for real-time rendering that allows, for quickly, testing multiple materials, having a non-destructive design iteration process, which means that if somebody's working again in Revit and is modifying something for you, but you're in Omniverse and you decide to move it, or you decide to change a quality or a feature of that object, it stays live in Omniverse. It doesn't go back to Revit unless you want it to. It creates, they call them deltas, basically, is all this information that each user plays on different objects in this experience. So it's a very flexible workflow. Again, it supports for real shaders. It has access to a couple of plugins for different AEC software. So if you haven't tried that, I would encourage you to check it out. But all of this couldn't be true or possible, I guess, without research and development. So we spend a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but we do invest on R&D at Canon Design. Here are two examples. At the top we have Arkeo, which is one of the newest partnerships that we have at Canon Design. Again, this is more of a mobile, super light, conceptual VR cross-platform space. And at the bottom, you have NVIDIA Holodeck, which was a partnership that happened 3 years ago, I believe, with NVIDIA, where we were looking at, again, a true multi-user space, VR space that was able to, drive also for real experiences. What was cool about Holodeck is that it opened this door to the outside world. So you have, you see a picture, a video happening in that clip of a person in Chicago. We were in St. Louis, and we have a couple of designers in New York City joining this session. But it opened that door to, in this case, I believe it was Google Hangouts. And you could just call into this space and, actually see, you can actually move this person in 3D space and have this conversation. So again, R&D, early testing, having access to, hardware and time to explore these type of technologies is very important. The partnerships always obviously come after, as you work with NVIDIA in this case, or any tech company, you will build these partnerships and you will feed from each other. We are educating, we are informing the software development in this case. And we are also getting excited, and we get to test, early on some of these applications, try to figure out how we can bring them into our design practice. Right, and here we have a couple more examples. Again, that's at the top. You see the basketball arena using Unreal Engine, but then now we're looking at how do you mix the physical with the digital. How do you enhance a physical model, in this case using AR? We had a couple of ideas coming out a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, on 3D mapping, some experiences for the client, and also implementing animation, lights, information layer on top of these physical pieces. In this case, we use Unity for this, and it was super fun just to explore that. But we also, do a lot of real-time rendering with twin motion. In this case, at the bottom, you can see that white model is a storyboard, for an animation. We quickly, set up cameras and camera paths, and then use twin motion to output this storyboard or animatic that we can then pass to the client so that he can approve, or they can approve the camera path and the speed and the feel of the animation before we do anything more, I guess, computing intensive. So it has been a blast, just testing real-time rendering tools, immersive technologies, account design. Again, going back to the example of that survey, using a 3D camera, you can then take that 3D data into Unreal Engine in this case and walk it again in one-to-one scale, which I found fascinating. Is basically kind of like playing with that idea of the digital twin, where you have a true scan of what is real, and then you can layer on top of that. Obviously, if I wanted to do something to this space, I could do it quickly. And then the idea, is that in the future we will, have these connections to different devices that allow, data to be transmitted and translated between the I guess the physical world and the digital world. And yes, so this is probably one of the early experiences that we had with a multi-user session. Again, this is our St. Louis office. We wanted to stress test, in this case, holodeck, to make sure that this is something that we could take on the road and quickly set up for clients. We had a couple of successful stories using holodeck. Holodeck right now is not really available. NVIDIA is rolling that into Omniverse, so it will be part of that ecosystem. But it was nice to be, to actually, again, early test this type of technology and actually use it for production work a couple of times and see the reactions of the client. All of this helps, kind of design, make decisions, and we felt like we were on the right path, and I truly believe we were. Now that we see how digital has taken over some of the spaces that used to be primarily physical. And with those avatars that you see on that experience that are more like cartoony or robotic in a way, now you can get super for real with almost human-like avatars. So this is again something that we have been exploring for some of the work that we do. And in the near future, I'm guessing 5 years from now, you will see avatars like these avatars being implemented into these virtual spaces. And I guess the most important thing that I guess I want you to walk away from this is finding this balance where you make sure that you are not only consuming the technology and implementing these for your design practice, but also thinking how the future of I guess the AEC is going to be affected, and also finding those bottlenecks, right? Like in our case, obviously, is data, translation. How do you consume that data? So just thinking on those lines, you will find a lot of solutions, and you will find the right partnerships for you. I'm really excited about Omniverse, to be honest with you. I have never seen anything like this before, and believe me, I spent a lot of hours, a lot of days, and I want to say months, translating files and making sure that they all make sense, trying to optimize them for a couple of different outputs. So there is a lot of hard work that goes into that. So finding that finally we have access to technology that can allow this communication to happen, truly happen between applications that we use on the daily basis is priceless to me. I think that this is again is going to be the future of how we work. It has to be in a way open source. You have to find those applications that allow for some I guess customization via programming. We also use Blender, for instance, and we have seen Blender taking on a non-destructive open source approach when it comes to 3D modeling and rendering. So finding those things, whatever the problem that you're having nowadays, or the questions that you have in your workflows and pipelines, just target that, and then find a partner, or if you have the skill set, obviously, make sure that you allow for that research and development to happen, because it's very important. If you want to be innovative, if you want to remain at the top, you have to make sure that you are early testing, that you're allowing your employees to have this time to honestly play with some of these ideas and have these conversations internally early on, and don't wait until we have to find a solution because we don't have time. So I have been lucky to being part of Count Design. They tend to allow for this type of spaces, and this has reflected on all the work that we have been doing, especially on the technology side of things. I feel like we have come up to be relevant in a way. 6-7 years ago, nobody really knew who Canon Design was at technology events, and that was a little bit frustrating. And I'm talking about technology, no architecture. But now, if you walk into GTC with NVIDIA or Autodesk University, pretty much everyone knows who you are, just because you are actually pushing boundaries and you are like having these conversations that will definitely affect the future of design collaboration. So with that, that's all I have. This is my information. Feel free to connect on social media and call me or send me an email if you have any questions, and we will jump to the Q&A. Thank you again for the invitation. It has been a blast.
Thank you, Ernesto. We do have a few questions in the chat box. The first one is from Dean. He said that you mentioned investing in R&D and was curious about discussing the return on investment.
Sure. Do you have anything more specific on where you're looking to get from R&D, or do you just want me to tell you exactly how it has happened at Count Design?
Dean, feel free to unmute if you'd like to add further detail on that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I'm sure there's a significant investment in your R&D, and I'm just curious how you can equate that to a return on that investment. That's really just very general.
Sure, thank you. No, it's priceless. It's just priceless. Again, we have been looking at rendering, real-time rendering, since I don't know 2015, 16 at Count Design, and actually using this for production work. Back then, we didn't really have a lot of background when it comes to game design. So just being able to take on those challenges, allowing for that space, for this group of people to actually try it and test it, has been, priceless. Again, when the pandemic happened, we were ready. We were completely ready to just move anything virtually. And when I say anything, I mean like any project. We had cities, loaded into these real-time rendering applications, and pretty quickly we already had the workflow, which is the most painstaking, I guess, process when it comes to R&D, finding that right solution. And again, when you're dealing with different applications like Autodesk applications, if you have Adobe and then you have SketchUp on top of that, and Rhino, you have to have a way to I guess translate the same workflow for every single application if you don't have a solution for everybody. You know, in this case, Omniverse is what we have been like stress testing for the last couple of years, and is in the aim to solve this question: how do you get away from having to export to different file formats? So it has been priceless. Yeah.
The second question we have is from Brandy. She'd like to know, what are the advantages and disadvantages for bringing this technology in-house versus outsourcing with another company?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So I think that you get it depends on who the partner you are dealing with is. If it's a big company like Autodesk and NVIDIA, they tend to be a little bit more closed when it comes to quick conversations. With NVIDIA, we have been a little bit more lucky on the lucky side. Like we really have this, I guess, rapport now, so we can interact with the people working on the application that we are testing. Actually, NVIDIA has an office here in St. Louis, and we have been able to visit, and they visit us. So it can be a really nice experience. But again, if you have bigger companies, they might not really like your feedback as much. You might be part of the beta testing, but you're not really influencing any decisions on the developing side of things. So in our case, from my experience, again, going back to Arkeo, the cross-platform application, this is a really small tech company out of Iceland, and they have a couple of developers, pepper around the world. But it has been super fun working with this type of small companies, just because you have direct communication. They are really quick to react to any type of issues that you run into. So it has been really rewarding. And again, your communication really affects the development of the application, right? So they are looking for that. Now, when it comes to doing it internally, we do that a lot. We tend to prefer that. We want to make sure that we, any type of R&D is absorbed and then disseminated throughout our offices. You have a little bit more control. There is also the question about ownership. You want to own some of these R&D. You don't want to just give away information to tech companies without getting anything from it, right? We have been lucky with both NVIDIA, Autodesk, and Adobe, when it comes to this type of relationships, just because we have managed to translate all of that interaction into something that affects our workflow and our design process. But if you can do it internally, and obviously it will be more expensive to do it internally, just because you will have to invest on not only the talent, but you will have to invest on hardware and software to get to a point where you can actually now call yourself a software developer. But it can be done. We are doing it at Canon Design. It just takes time. It takes organization. You have to make sure that you have the right people involved, and then make sure that the R&D is a little bit more fluid, more organic, less of a task. So you have questions, not tasks. And then from those questions, you get results, and then you have feedback and all of that. At Canon Design, we actually have a program called AMP, which is basically an incubator of ideas. If you have an idea, you submit it, and then if you get picked up, you get a couple of sponsors, and then you get funded, and so forth. So we tend to have those type of conversations internally. And then once the AMP proposal is picked up, you can actually develop something for the company, and then ownership stays within. But again, it takes a lot of thinking, a lot of paving before you can actually roll out something like this. But it's never too late. I will encourage you to do something like that. I actually just I have an AMP proposal at Canon Design for extended reality, which is basically the next step, mixed reality using mixed reality headsets. We haven't done much on that, and we have done augmented reality, but we haven't actually done mixed reality. So that's one of the things that we will be focusing on in the next couple of months.
All right, great. The next question we have is from Olivia. Do you anticipate any changes with streamlining the design process? such as any issues that come with speeding up the design process and pushing for sheer efficiency instead of allowing for time to consider design decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening. If yeah, that could be a problem when you have a way to output quickly. You may lose the design intent in the process, right? I think that that's what the question is asking. But then again, so we have to educate both our designers, and we have to educate the client. We have to educate them on, okay, yes, this is rendering faster than before, but that doesn't mean that you have to output all of these renderings or all of these animations and then do 1,000 design changes or finishes. You just have to make sure that you have a way to contain that excitement and make sure that it's working and it's actually giving your company what it needs from the experience. Because you can output as many renderings as you want and as many ideas, but if it's not really being developed fully, then the benefit is lost. So what we have done is basically communicate that to designers. Say, okay, yes, you can do this, but guess what? This is allowing you time to focus on your design, on the craft, on your craft, right? Don't get too excited about the technology. Yeah, it's pretty cool and you can do all of this, but you see this as time being gained on your side, right? Like you now have all of this time to iterate and have deeper conversations. Finding, especially with the client, trying to find exactly what the client needs. But it has to come from this communication, this honest communication that you have, between your teammates and the client, saying, yes, we can do this, but we should focus on these. And education, again, educating is very important. That way you make sure that you're not burning out anybody, because we have seen in the past that when you tell somebody that you can do an animation in 3 days, they get excited about that. And then you have this person just working on animations for no reason, forever. So yeah, you just have to have this communication, honest communication and education internally as well as externally with clients and contractors.
Olivia, do you have any follow-up questions with regards to that response?
No, I think that was great. Thank you.
All right, great. Okay, I believe our final question is from Jacob. Having experience in Unreal Engine, he mentions a lot of time is invested in a library of materials, 3D assets, etc., while balancing polygon counts. Have you absorbed these items into your R&D process, or are there resources you have used to make this process less cumbersome and more efficient?
Sure. Thanks, Jacob. That's a good question. When it comes to assets, materials, and 3D assets, for materials, we use Substance. That's the quickest way to get to for a real material. Substance allows you to tap into the library that they have. They call it Substance Source, and they have thousands of materials that you can then download and then customize using their tools. So if you have a brick that kind of looks like the brick that you're looking, you can download that brick, and then using Substance, you can then customize that brick and then quickly export texture maps. And also, because you're using this workflow, you can rest assured that the textures will be exported correctly. So you have the correct resolution, you have the correct file format for the render engine that you're using. So all the second guessing is gone. So that's the fastest way to do it. You can also build your own libraries in Unreal Engine. I just think that if you have access to this type of service, might as well just take advantage of that. If you want to do it the other way, you can quickly sit down and have a conversation. You can roll in the R&D for material creation into something else, and that way your time is being used correctly, and you're being a little bit more efficient, and within a couple of months you will have a robust custom-made library that you can use. When it comes to 3D objects, we do everything on our end. I mean, we use different applications. For instance, for sites, we use InfraWorks. Autodesk InfraWorks is the quickest way you can get to a site, through a true site of as true as it can be. of the location that you're trying to utilize for the experience. And then we use applications like 3ds Max to decimate the geometry to make sure that it's light enough, that is not really taken away from the frame rates and the I guess navigation that you get in Unreal Engine. So R&D, again, if you have time to stress test this, you will quickly find a solution. You will have some presets already built for everybody to use, and you won't have to again second guess what you're doing. Unreal Engine now, I'm sure that you are following this, but they acquired a couple of companies, one called Quixel. Quixel is a company that used to do a lot of 3D scanning for a real 3D scanning of objects and rocks and things like that. So they will continue to obviously build these libraries for Quixel that will allow you to bring in, for a real site work, for instance. Now you can download a street and then it's all modular, so you can actually, put it together quickly. We call it kit bashing, which means you have a kit of 3D objects, and then you quickly create something bigger with those objects as presets, so to speak. And all of these are optimized. They have LODs that allow you to allow Unreal Engine to use the resources it needs when it needs it. I don't know if that answers the question, but let me know.
No, that absolutely does. So no, I appreciate it. And Quixel's the one thing that I haven't really dove into, and the rest has been kind of creating on our own. And that's just been a cumbersome project for a smaller firm, not as large as Canon, where I'm sure you have a bit more people invested in the creation of those things. But no, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. If check out Twinmotion. Twinmotion allows you to connect to Quixel quickly now. And it has again expedited a lot of the early on visualization. Twinmotion is basically our to-go tool to do quick iterations on renderings and animations. It has allowed a lot of people that didn't have any animation background to just quickly do an animation. But again, be careful, educate and communicate, be honest. The idea here is that it will free time for the designer or the team that is designing this building or whatever you're working on to invest into the ideation phase, not just output more things, right? But yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I love Twinmotion for that balance, where you dive into Unreal at the end, and Twinmotion's your schematic or your conceptual development.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, did anybody else have any other further questions for Ernesto? All right, well, thank you, Ernesto. I do want to remind everybody, this presentation was recorded and it will be available in a few days. So if you don't receive the link, please reach out to Kelly or myself or the info@slccc.net. And also for those of you that need to report CEUs to AIA or need to report PDHs, the form is available on their website. And so please, if you have questions, reach out to Kelly Jackson or their staff. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Kelly, to close out the session. Thanks.
Appreciate that. Just a couple moments. First of all, thank you, Ernesto. I was so excited to see this, and I think it's obviously way cool. Is the phrase that comes to mind. It's amazing what you're doing, and I'm so excited that everybody got to see that. Thank you, Brandon, obviously for emceeing, agreeing to do that, and obviously for chairing this subcommittee to put this together. Thank you to our sponsors, of course, as always. Thank you to the whole education committee. Obviously, he already mentioned to check the website. The evaluations are really important to us. It really does help us understand if you appreciated this program, if it was helpful, valuable, and then anything that you are thinking about that you'd like to see in the future. And then speaking of that, we do have a Design and Tech conference that we are jointly doing with the AGC. That is October 22nd. If you choose to go to that, please mark that you heard about it through us. There is actually a choice between the AGC and us as to choose where you heard it from. So sign up for that and make sure you mark the council for that. And then that's it. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you.